Hey everyone, I appreciate you guys joining us back again on the CJ5. To catch us back up on the last video, we actually just finished putting a receiver hitch in the front bumper, which also finalized all of our fitments in the front. So now our grill's locked in, tub's locked in on body mounts, everything's going good with that. Today we're going to start building fenders though. To go out and buy, I've said it a million times already on other videos, to go out and buy the replication fenders that I needed for this, because my other ones were just trash. They were like $300 a piece. I'm just not going to spend $300 a piece for it whenever I can make something cooler. Building an off-road fender, there's a million different, videos that are out there for it. This is by no means some type of extreme rock crawler. This is really just county road cruiser, beat it around in the woods, maybe take it down some cooler trails and stuff like that too. But this is by no means, as fancy as what some guys can get with it. Where we're at currently is actually, we basically just have a singular pipe that's connecting the tub up to the grill assembly, which you're sitting on right now. I've got a few different ideas on what I want to do. I am going to keep this kind of like what a traditional flat fender, wheelie style fender would look like, where the fender is going to stay flat. That's going to give us a lot of wheel, a lot of tire clearance that's inside of that, whether we're going over obstacles or whatever else. So I like that idea, and it's also just going to give it kind of a cool, aggressive look. Before we get into that, though, we're going to be working with more pipe. I've got a few different ideas on how I want to incorporate specifically this side, how I want to incorporate that all together. But the first thing we're going to have to talk about is fish mouthing. So if you don't know what fish mouthing is, there's about a million different videos out there already on how to do a proper fish mouth. I'm not going to tell you mine's any better than theirs. This is what I'm going to do for this method on an economical sense. So there's a lot of fancy tools that are out there that will help you make a perfect fish mouth every single time. I love them. I've used them before. I just don't own them. Places that I worked at have had them and stuff. They're fantastic, but they're expensive. Just not a rich guy. As you can see, we're building fenders, literally. So there's another method out there too that involves a chop saw, which I'll show you guys. Maybe you don't own a chop saw. So I'm going to show you the simplest form that's going to cost us roughly $6-7 to be able to make a perfect fish mouth cut every single time. So what is a fish mouth? Basically, a fish mouth is going to be, I have this piece of pipe and I need to join a piece of pipe to this one. Well, if I do that, that doesn't join very well. Just a basic flat butt cut, butt mouth is what that'd be. Flush mouth that's inside of that doesn't work. A fish mouth is literally going to look just like that. A fish is going to have kind of an oval oblong mouth. That's just kind of a slang term that's there. You may hear it called a saddle as well. And now we're going to be able to see that guy get a perfect fitment. So let me get you down here so you can see that a little bit clearer. And here you are. You can see how nice that fits inside of there. You can see where it actually fits the contour and everything. Now, I don't have this one beveled anymore. This is just exactly the way that I cut it and ground it out to have it where it is right now. We can do some beveling and actually make that even better for welding too. But even as it sits right there, for what we're doing, we're not making no NHRA certified cages or anything. This would be more than acceptable for us to weld even as it is right now. Versus if we were to just stick a piece of pipe there together, you can see where that's not going to go over so well, the cleanliness, the fitment, and everything else that's there. So I'm going to show you two different ways. The first way I'm going to show you is actually on a chop saw, which is a super easy way to do it. There's a ton of videos out there once again. Super simple method to be able to get a quick and clean cut every time on a fish mouth for this basic piping that's here. Then I'm going to follow that up with showing you guys how to make the super cheap version of this as well. Okay, so to do our first method with the chop saw, what we're working with here is actually 1 1/4 inch piece of pipe, outside diameter piece of pipe that's there. So we're going to go ahead and grid that out on our table right now. Mark him out at 1 1/4 inches. So there's my two outside parameters that's there. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark my center that's inside of that as well. Get him there. Got our 5/8 of an inch that's there. Okay, so we're going to pull him up. You can see where we're going to use that center mark to line that up. But more importantly, I'm looking down and verifying that my two outside angles are there as well. You're going to see me go through and actually make an inside mark here. So you can see that if you can't, there's a distinct inside mark that's there. I'm then going to flip this piece of pipe over 180 degrees and do the exact same thing again. So make sure I'm parallel on my outsides and then mark my inside distinctly inside of that. I can then pull those marks to the edges, because what I'm trying to do here distinctly is pull those marks to the outside. So I want to see those marks. You can see that one already on there. Get those marks to the outside. All right, let's go to the chop saw now. So now that we're at the chop saw, and as you can see, I by no means have the nicest chop saw that there is. If you get like into an evolution saw and things like that, these guys are extremely precise, really, really nice. It's on there. Laser markers, everything else that's there. My old guy got it on auction. You know, he ain't much, but he does pretty good. So you're going to see that first line. I want to keep him to the top. I'm just going to eyeball him. And then I'm going to put that saw blade right on its edge. So the top of the mark, and I want him to basically be right there on the edge. Now, I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but I have this angle set at 32.5, basically 33 degrees that's inside of that. I'm going to make both of these cuts here at a 33 degree cut, and you're going to see just how effective that can be. So once again, line to the top, get them clamped inside of their flat. You can see where that saw blade's going to make contact right with that center line that we just marked inside the shop. I'm going to make that cut right quick, and we'll flip it over and do the other side. Okay, so we flipped it over to the other side, let the blade quit spinning. And now I've got that same distinct mark. That's right there. I'm going to put it right at the tip of where that mark is to get my secondary cut that's there. All right, now we've got it back inside the shop. Just by a rough eyeball, you can already see how nice and straight and pointed in the center that it is there. Now let's go ahead and clean up the trash. So you're going to look inside of there. You'll see trash inside the pipe. Let's go ahead and get him cleaned up. You don't have to put it in a vise. I just like to secure it, just easier. Get the old belt sander going. Okay, and there's that pretty fish mouth that we're talking about. Now, this is super simple and easy to do. Once again, with my chop saw, it'll do it. It's not that precise, though, especially if you got one of these newer style saws. Better yet, not an abrasive wheel like I have, but an actual serrated, saw blade wheel. For steel, they're just 10 times better, 10 times more accurate. You can see we get it done. It's not bad. But this was the whole reason. That saw out there was the whole reason on why I made one of these templates in the first place. And that's going to be the next thing I show you. But let's see how our fitment is on that piece of pipe first. You can see where he put them together. That's no extra prep. That's no anything. It's just get the trash that was, left behind from the initial cut. And you can already see how much cleaner that is through there. So that's method number one that we could do. Let's go on to method number two, which is going to be making a template and doing this stuff really nice. So in the case that I don't have that chop saw, this is what we're going to do now. This really isn't super complicated. Once again, this is 1.25 inch piping that's there. The first thing I'm going to have to do is figure out how to find the diameter all the way around. Spoiler alert, a piece of string is super easy. You can see this piece of paper that's here. I can wrap it all the way around. Realistically, I've already done it, and it's 4 inches around is what it is. So I need it to be 4 inches around my template that I'm going to make, and I actually have one here laid out already. My template I'm going to make, so 4 inches around, and then I need to have this thing. The depth doesn't really matter. I can have it as thick as what this is. It doesn't really matter. This is just the template that we're using to make for the next step that's there. So it can be 4 inches, deep. I don't really care how long that is. But it has to be 4 inches wide because it's going to wrap perfectly all the way around that guy like that. So let's get that gridded out right quick at 4 inches, which we're pretty well already there. on this piece of paper. If you can't notice, if you remember from the trailer video that my kids did, this was their stay on track piece of paper that was there. So let's get her marked out. We are 4 inches that we need to be there. Once again, how deep it goes doesn't really matter. Let's just keep it below the words. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and trim this guy out. Actually, I think before that, something I'm going to have to do is control the depth. So basically, if I'm flat across through there like that, how deep do I need to go? That's actually going to end up being 1/4 inch. Now, you can play with this however you want. I just have the convenience of already having this template made. So I was able to take and measure down on that. So I need to find a center point of 1/4 inch down is what we have. And we can measure it one more time just to make sure. And we are right there. You can see roughly 1/4 inch deep that's on that. So let's go ahead and make that measurement now. So that way I can use the speed square and actually mark that where I want it at. Okay. And now we just have that. Oops. Sure, my paper's screwed in there. Now we got that 1/4 inch that's marked inside of there. So now let's go ahead and trim this guy out. Okay, and just like that. So now I need to take and divide it in 2. So you can see where we got a fish mouth on one side and the other, but we still have that top and bottom center points that are there. That's the original height that's there. Like if there was a chop saw, that's where that line would have been on that guy. So we need to take and divide this in 2. So mark it at the 2 inch mark, right through there. And I always like to take and put a C on that too. Now, this is going to be where the most artistic part of it all comes into play, because I need to now make that swoop that goes through there. So you can see where this one sits on there. I need to have that swoop go down to that center line and up. Now, if you get it wrong, it's not really the end of the world that's through there. I could even take and make it even easier on myself and mark the center of each one of these lines that's there. So there's my 1 inch mark. There's my center where it needs to be. That one would be 3. So now I know exactly where the swoop needs to come out of. And this, for you guys making a template, this is going to be the part where you just play with it. It's the template's going to be the one that gets you. You're going to play with this because you're trying to make a permanent template's what you're doing. So you may have to make 2 or 3 of these that's there. That's fine. Don't be discouraged if that's where you're at with it. So there it is, just roughly drawn in. Let's just hold it up and see how close I actually am with my original template that's there. Could I eyeball it well enough? You can see through there, really, I could go a little bit deeper, it looks like, inside of my center points that are there. So maybe we're more like 3/8 of an inch instead of 1/4 inch down that's there. Other than that, I've got that thing worked out perfect. So let's go ahead and give it just a little bit of depth because we know that we need it based on that other template. Now, if I wouldn't have had that, it's not the end of the world. I just would have seen that I had a flat spot, and there we go. All right, so now I'm going to trim out around the outside realm. So not on this inside edge. I'm trimming now on the outside edge of where that swoop mark is through there. If you've watched any of my other videos, you're quickly figuring out that a good pair of scissors is probably one of my favorite tools to use. Just making various templates and everything else. We've talked about it already, this kind of construction paper, particle board, whatever you want to call it. This stuff is awesome. And everything that I do usually starts with a template being made like that. So let's hold it up and actually see how we did now. we see where we're actually pretty daggum close inside of there. So this is our one we just made. How close do we get to actually getting this guy on there? So I'm going to put my center mark right there on that point and wrap it around to where my secondary edge will be my center point there. Yep. There he is right there. Simple made so far, nothing complicated. All right. Well, I was just going to pick up at this point and say, okay, you know, we made our template matches. Let's go into actually making our permanent template. But what does that teach us? We don't learn anything from that. So let's start over fresh with just a flat end that's on that, how I'd go about doing this. So the next step, we got our template made that's inside of that. I'm going to have to get this guy mounted on there so I can actually mark my piece of pipe that's there. Now I'm going to have some electrical tape here on standby. That's what I'm going to use to basically hold this thing tight. So I want to get him wrapped around there. Now this joint that I have, I need to make sure that he's wrapped in there tight. But I also have to make sure things like the point are not higher than they need to be. I need it to be, really it can be just flat out below it, and that doesn't hurt anything. I'm going to butt mine up right to the points that are there. I also have to make sure that everything's going to go on there evenly. I can't have anything, I don't want either one of these edges to be offset because it doesn't give me an accurate template at that point. So get my tape on there, double check my edges that are there. I also have some ability to move this thing up and down now, which is nice too. And then let's put on a secured piece just to make sure everything's locked in tight that's there. Now you could just stop at this point and say, okay, there's my template. It's easy to do. You know, my piece of paper, I can slide it on, I can slide it off. You know, I can keep doing that over and over. And that's be perfectly acceptable. You could even make this thing out like a piece of plastic to where it was more durable than the paper that's there and whatnot. That would be fine too. I want something that's more accurate though. So right now, this thing is basically the template to mark this piece of pipe, get all my work done on the piece of pipe, get it fishmouth, and then I'm going to make a template off of this piece of pipe that's here. Lots of templates going on today. But my goal is I want it to be accurate. I don't want to think about it. I don't have to line it up. I want to be able to throw this thing right on there and be able to know that it's accurate every time with that. And by having even a taped joint like that, I'm never going to achieve it through there. So now that we have it marked, I can pop this guy off and we see where that fish mouth from our template is marked on there. Now, as far as doing this, the whole purpose of this, and I want to show you how to do it on an economical sense. So you don't have to have a fancy chop saw. You don't have to have anything more than a basic grinder that's here. Now, this is a 4.5-inch grinder. Honestly, they're like $50. I mean, they're not, I don't know what Harbor Freight is, but these are probably the most economical version. You can also have like a pistol grip type 2-inch roll-out disc grinder that's there. You could even have a belt grinder that's inside of this too. This Milwaukee version, once again, I love it on the electric version side of things, but 3M makes them in a pneumatic version. There's a lot of people that make these. This thing would do a really nice job of getting in there on the curve. However, for this video, I think I want to just stick to this guy to show you just how simple this really is and how easy we can duplicate it. So I'm going to get this guy set up in the vise, and then we'll get camera back on, and we'll actually do this with the 4.5-inch grinder to get our fish mouth done on this. So before I put it on time lapse and start grinding, here we are clamped in the vise, and here we can see our first side that we need to take out. So all this material on this top side of this line, we got to take out. And we're going to use this 4.5-inch grinder to do so. So it's mostly going to be using the edges that are there and working inside of that to get it the rest of the way. You could go through with a cutoff wheel on that first and cut out the bulk. For as simple and swooping as this is, I don't think I'm going to waste the time with it. I'm going to just stay with the grinder and grind the rest of it out. Maybe we do one side with just the grinder and the other side we'll do the cutoff wheel and then grinder. So I'm going to get the camera set up, put it on time lapse, and we'll get it done. So here's where we're looking so far. Here's how we're looking so far. You can see I've used nothing but that grinder so far, and to stay true to that, I'm not even going to use the belt sander to finish inside of that hole. You're going to see me even go down so low as to use a file just to show you how simple this really is. So clean up that last little bit of trash that's inside of that. I'll run the file through it. That was even after I got a belt sander, I still found myself going back and using a file on this stuff just because I forgot that I even had it. Or forget how useful it is. But now that I've grown pretty used to having that belt sander around, I use it quite a bit. Okay, there is our finished product. Let's see how it fits. Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of, I mean, we can still do some fine tuning and stuff on it, but you can see where that guy sits right inside of there. We flip it over, and we can see the same thing there again. We might take just a little bit more off the middle of this guy. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, the inside, I got too many things in my hands. The inside part right inside of there just needs to be flattened a little bit, which we can even do whenever we do our cleanup for our beveling and stuff like that. But the very, very minor tweaks to do to it to have this thing ready to go. So now that we've got our fish mouth finalized off of our original template, wherever it went, off of our original template that we made through here, now that we got it done, now is the final piece of the puzzle. This is going to be my permanent fits is what I'm wanting to do. This is nothing more than a piece of exhaust, a coupler is all that it is. I was hoping to find just a straight piece of pipe, but this coupler will work too. This has 1 3/8 inside diameter that's on this. So that works out really well for us, and we're going to slip him on. That's going to be the hard part. I've already got it pre-marked just because I couldn't have the camera, have all that. But you can see inside of there where I've got that already marked, and the opposing side is going to be marked too. So this is going to serve as my permanent template is what it's going to do. And you can see where it sleeves on. I can never get it really not fit it perfectly. And this is what I want to have for that quick, throw it on, mark it out exactly where I need it at, and go from there. So now I need to get this guy cleaned up and traced out of there. So I'm going to get him done right quick. And I got one more thing to do to make sure that we're always going to be the exact same from fitment all the way to the actual prepping of the pipe that's there too. So I'm going to get him prepped right quick and I'll come right back. Now that's what I'm talking about. Now this is a permanent template that we can use consistently every single time. So we've already got this one fish mouthed here off of our original template there. We hold that guy up and bing, boom, boom, there he is, ready to go. Now, something I've included on there, and I might go through with a chisel and even like etch that into the metal there, is a witness mark. That means whenever I get this pipe fitted up and I get it set exactly how I want, whenever I trace this outline, I can continue that witness mark, and that way I have the same side. So in case that there might be a slight tolerance between, this opening of the mouth and this opening of the mouth, however I fit that piece of pipe up, I can consistently be in the same place both times of trimming because I have that witness mark that's there. It might not be necessary, but for me, I love a witness mark to always be able to consistently put it back to where I originally marked it at. So I really, really like it. You can make 1 million of these. You could do it for, once again, we got 1.25" outside diameter tubing here with 1 3/8" fitting that goes on top of it to have for our template through there. You could do it with 2 inch, you could do it with 3 inch, you do it with whatever. This is just a cheap, I spent, just a little bit over $6 on this coupler from an exhaust store. Now, if it would have been a perfect scenario, I would have been able to buy a certain length of pipe, and I could make other various joints that are here too. So not everything's going to just run in and be a 90-degree joint that's there. There's going to be other joints that I'm going to have and other couplers that I'll make. But once we get going with this thing here, I think you could honestly make one of these in under 15 minutes, if that. And now I've got something that can go in the toolbox, and I'll always have it. This thing's never going to wear out. It's not, the worst I could do is drop it and bend an ear or something on it. That's about the only way this thing could ever go sour, in reality. So really, really awesome tool that's there with it. I couldn't be more excited to have it, and we're definitely going to need it because we're going to start building on our fender as we shoot through here and on the other side. The other side, I'm gonna have to start passenger side first, because on this other side, I have brake master booster coming in. So once it's in, and then once the master cylinder for the brakes is in, then I'm going to be able to build this one. But until I have it in here, I don't think we better mess with it at all. So we're going to start on passenger side, which I'm really excited for. There's a lot of different tube work I want to do with that, and I also want to build a battery tray that's inside of this tube. So really, really excited for it. Really excited for this awesome new tool that I got that's going to make this job 10 times faster, with next to nothing in cost as far as my tools and stuff go. So any of you guys can do this. It just takes a little bit of creative thought. And that's really all that it is. How can I stay consistent? How can I make the best thing? We could have stopped at a piece of paper and we would have had paper results. We keep a piece of steel that's there. It's never going to go sour on us. We're always going to be able to make a consistent mark and consistently grind it out every time. So really, really excited for it. Now let's get to work.